Adana stood still as the tears flowed from her eyes. When she could no longer see Afam's shadow anymore, she went back quietly into her store. What will people say? What will she tell her father? What of her mother? She imagined how the villagers would mock her. She felt helpless. Where did she go wrong with Afam? She had given 5 years to Afam and he decided to dash her hopes. Adana was beyond disappointed. She decided to close her store and go home. She locked the bags of gold in her store as she was not sure what to do with it yet. Adana tried to compose herself as she walked back home. Uchi was on his way to the palace when he saw Adana walking back home when the day had just started. He was concerned and unsure why she was going home by that time. Adana! Adana! Uchi had a look of worry on his face as he called out to Adana. Adana turned to see who was calling her and she was suddenly filled with a wave of hope. She breathed a breath of relief. Surely Uchi would help her talk to Afam and they would be back together again, she thought to herself. Uchi! Adana responded, waving from a distance as she came closer. Uchi could not help but admire Adana's beauty. He tried to look away to avoid eye contact with her. God be praised that I saw you today, Adana said, forcing a smile. You do not look happy. Why the long face? Uchi asked. He could tell that Adana was forcing a smile. Afam broke up with me, Adana replied, trying to hold back her tears. She did not want to appear weak. Uchi was astonished. Afam never confided to him about his plans to end things with Adana. What could have gone wrong? He did not want to ask Adana if she did anything wrong for fear of upsetting her. He decided to talk to Afam first. He believed that if Adana did something wrong, she would have told him. Are you okay? Uchi asked. My heart is sinking. I feel like I am floating. Hoping and praying it is all a dream, Adana responded in a shaky voice. I am going to the palace now. When I get back, I will stop by Afam's house, Uchi said, reassuring Adana. She nodded in return as her eyes were already filled with tears. Uchi saw this and hugged Adana. She thanked Uchi and went home. When Adana got home, she saw her stepsister Ngozi trying new outfits. She quickly cleaned her tears so Ngozi does not get worried because of her. Sister Ada, welcome, Ngozi greeted her sister. Adana smiled. You look so happy. Did Papa get you these dresses? Adana asked, wearing a huge smile on her face. I have a new suitor. He will be coming for my hand in marriage in 2 Eke market days. Ngozi said, smiling. Adana was so happy and hugged Ngozi, her sister. I am so happy for you, Adana said. She started praising Ngozi and they both started dancing and rejoicing at the good news of Ngozi's engagement. Adana and Ngozi went to share the good news with their father. He was elated and happy. Emeka told his second daughter, Ngozi, to excuse them. It was just Adana and her father in the hut. Adana, my jewel, Chief Emeka said. Adana, hearing her father's warm voice, broke down in tears. She confessed how Afam had just broken up with her. She does not know where she went wrong, and he gave her bags of gold for the sacrifice she made and the 5 years she had waited for him. Chief Emeka was deeply saddened by the news. He consoled Adana and assured her everything was working for her good. Meanwhile, Ngozi was eavesdropping on Adana and her father. She was happy to confirm that Afam kept to his word in breaking up the engagement with Adana to marry her. She quickly went back to her hut so she does not get caught. Adana went to her hut. She was so sad and she missed Oluchi, her best friend, the more. This was when she needed Oluchi most. Her death had left a large space in her heart. Adana sat on the bed in her hut, bawling her eyes out over Oluchi's death and her breakup with Afam. She wished she listened to Oluchi. She could not believe 5 years of her life gone with nothing to account for. She thought of how if she had used the money to fund her business, she would have had a chain of shops by now. She pitied herself and hoped that Uchi could get Afam to love her again. Meanwhile, Uchi went to the palace to entertain the royal family. Throughout the day, he kept pondering on what would make Afam dissolve his engagement with Adana. Uchi finished at the royal family and went to see his friend, Afam. He met Afam in his compound with his Umu boys. Afam had grown to be a big businessman. He had boys serving him. As soon as he saw Uchi walking into his compound, his face lit up like he had won the lottery. "Uchi, my brother," Afam proceeded to hug Uchi. He led him to a seat and served him palm wine that was fresh so they could chat. "Afam, Ogini, what did Adana do to you that you decided to dissolve the engagement?" Uche frowned, not waiting to exchange pleasantries. "My brother," Afam clasped his hands as he wondered where to start. "I have decided to marry Ngozi. I love her. I do not want to marry someone I do not love," Afam said coldly. He did not show any emotional expression to let Uche know he had no plan to change his mind. "Adana's stepsister?" Uche asked, raising his voice. He was shocked that his friend could hurt Adana that way by marrying her stepsister. Afam was reluctant to respond. He clasped his hand again and said to Uche, "My brother, these things happen. I will not be the first, neither will I be the last. I did not tell my heart to fall for Ngozi. Ngozi is so beautiful that I could not resist. I have compensated Adana and I hope that will be enough to console her." "What do you mean? That is your betrothed stepsister. This is betrayal," Uche said firmly to Afam. He had shown Afam that this was wrong. He had known Afam since childhood, but never saw this side of him. How easily and quickly people change when the going gets good. Uche refused to eat at Afam's place. He insisted he needed to go home. When Uche left, Afam dismissed his workers as his mood had changed. When he was left alone, he pondered on everything. He knew he had hurt Adana the day he made advances to Ngozi and proposed marriage. But he was a king and only a beautiful woman should be by his side, not a fat, plumpy lady who was unattractive, he thought to himself. He decided to go ahead with his plans. The next day, Adana refused to eat anything. She sat on her bed crying. Her mother pleaded with her to eat something, anything at all, but Adana was not having it. "This food is the reason why Afam has dissolved our engagement. 5 years, Mama. What do I have to show for it?" Adana cried, telling her mother in self-pity. "Why don't you use the gold and set up yourself? Every disappointment is a blessing. He never truly loved you, Adanna," Ifunanya said to her daughter, but all words fell on deaf ears. Adana wailed and cried for days. Some days, she went to Afam's house with cooked meals, begging him to take her back. She was scared she would be alone forever. She always wanted a family of her own, but that future now looked bleak. Afam would tell Adana to leave his house as he was no longer interested in marrying her. All her begging and pleadings for Afam not to dissolve their engagement fell on deaf ears. Adana accepted her fate and decided to reopen the store and move on with her life. The preparation for Ngozi's suitor and his people to come and ask her hand in marriage started as the day was fast approaching. Udoka, the second wife, used the opportunity to taunt Adana and her mother on Adana's failed engagement. She would mock Adana that she would die alone, as no one can be with a woman who is the size of 6 people. She would laugh wickedly at Adana. Adana dreaded seeing Udoka, her stepmother, when she came back from her store, so she started using the back door to enter the compound. The day of Ngozi's introduction finally came. The sun shone brightly with a bright sky, with the birds chirping loudly in the sky. Ngozi was happy. She was dressed beautifully as the bride-to-be. The whole family was ready to receive her suitor and his family. Adana finished cooking and went to get dressed. She was still in her room dressing when Afam and his kinsmen came to the compound. Chief Emeka welcomed them and served them palm wine. They prayed and broke kola nuts. Ise, they all echoed after the prayers. Onyeka was with his sister Ngozi in her hut when Adana came to meet them. Adana was so beautiful and wore a beautiful smile. Not long, Ngozi was summoned. Udoka came to get her daughter, Ngozi, while Adana followed from behind. As soon as Adana saw Afam, she ran to hug him. She was excited. Afam, you came, Adana said excitedly as she hugged him. But Udoka pushed Adana off Afam. That is Ngozi's suitor, she scolded Adana. Everyone was shocked at Adana hugging Afam. Adana looked at Ngozi, her stepsister, as tears flowed from her eyes. The saliva in her mouth suddenly became bitter. It felt like she was floating in the air. Ngozi, is Afam the suitor you are expecting? Adana asked with a shaky voice. Ngozi kept mute and kept looking at the ground like it was not her Adana was talking to. I am asking you, Ngozi. Adana's voice was not so audible as the tears gave way. I am sorry, Sister Adana, Ngozi said, lifting her head. We fell in love. No, 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 Adana screamed as she ran out of her father's compound. She could not believe her fiancé and her stepsister could betray her. She wished it was a dream she hoped to wake up from. She ran to the palace in search of Uchi, the king's drummer. As soon as she saw Uchi, she held his hands tightly, crying. Is this a dream? Tell me it is a dream, she said. What is going on? Uchi asked with a worried look on his face. Adana tried to speak as she was trying to catch her breath, but she broke down crying more. Afam is in my father's compound, asking for Ngozi's hand in marriage. I do not understand. He only broke up 2 weeks ago, Adana said amidst tears. Uche just looked at her pitifully. He was short of words. You knew? Adana asked. Yes, I did. The day you informed me of the broken engagement, I saw him and he told me. Why, Uche? Everyone knew except me. I am such a fool, Adana cried bitterly. Uche tried to console her, but she retracted her steps. She walked soberly back to her late best friend's house. She laid on Oluchi's bed. Oluchi, where are you? Adana cried and wailed in self-pity. Meanwhile, Chief Emeka was unsure of what had happened. Udoka urged them to continue with the introduction as Adana was unwell. Afam's kinsmen made their proposal known and Ngozi accepted. Chief Emeka accepted the wine and confirmed he will be communicating with the list for the traditional wedding preparation. After Afam and his kinsmen left their compound, Chief Emeka called Ngozi and questioned her on Adanna's behavior earlier. But Ngozi feigned that Afam was her close friend and that was all she knew. I do not know why Adanna acted that way, Papa. Afam was her friend and her worker before he decided to marry me. Maybe she's just jealous, Papa, Ngozi told him. She was happy Afam decided to marry her. Adanna had always been getting the accolades. It is her time now to shine, Ngozi thought to herself. Ngozi excused herself and went back to the hut. That night, Adanna came in and went into her hut quietly. She refused to talk to her mother or her father. In the middle of the night, Adanna woke up and knelt to pray. She prayed to God for restoration of the years she had lost. She poured out her heart and went back to bed. Weeks passed and Ngozi's marriage ceremony to Afam was in motion. Adanna expanded her business to 2 more stores. She started eating right and taking walks. Adanna forgave Uchi for not telling her about Afam and Ngozi. Afam gave Adanna advice on the things she should eat in order for her to trim her weight. After he finished drumming for the king, he would go to Adanna's store and take Adanna for a walk. Adanna found eating things she did not like hard, so Uchi taught her portion control, which was a bit easier for her. She could eat the things she liked, but in smaller portions. It was a few weeks to the wedding, and Adanna had lost some weight, but not enough for anyone to notice. Only she could see the difference as her clothes were already beginning to get loose. The morning of the wedding came, and Ngozi was dressed as a beautiful Igbo bride. She was glowing and was adorned with beautiful beads. Since Adanna knew about her and Afam, she had tried to keep to herself and refused to speak to her sister. She was not ready to have a conversation with Adanna. While her mother and her friends helped her to dress up, she could not help but ask if Adanna was going to be around for the wedding. Mama, will Adanna be around for my wedding? Ngozi asked, wearing a worried look on her face. Who cares? This is your day and you should not be bothered about anyone, not even your stepsister Adanna. A man cannot be snatched. He chose you, Udoka reassured her daughter. But Ngozi told her mother that she was not sad. She just felt it would be awkward having Adanna there. Don't pay attention to her. Just enjoy your marriage to the biggest businessman in the whole of Umudike village, Udoka praised her daughter. Ngozi smiled and turned around, shaking her waist. Unye Odogu, Udoka kept on hailing her daughter. Onyeka, Ngozi's brother, was not in support of the marriage arrangements as he believed it was wrong that Ngozi, his sister, betrayed their elder sister Adanna. Adanna prepared that morning and decided to stop by the palace to see Uchi. She wanted to let him know she was fine with him attending his best friend's marriage ceremony. But unknown to her, Uchi was already on his way to her family compound for the wedding and was hoping to see her there. Adanna arrived at the royal palace. She proceeded to ask the guards about Uchi's whereabouts, but when the king saw her, he told his guards to usher her into the palace. Adanna was always looking forward to seeing the king, whom the village and other neighboring villages pay homage and respect to. Stories about his wisdom has helped the people of Omudike and other kingdoms due to his great wisdom and knowledge traveled wide. She was looking forward to seeing this great king that was talked about, but she was ashamed of going to public gatherings for fear of being humiliated due to her body size. But here she was, standing before the great king, and to her surprise, he was a young man. She thought she would see an old man with grey hair. Igwe! Adana greeted the king as she bowed. Please, could you step closer? The king requested. Adana liked that he was polite and handsome too. She stepped closer so the king could see her more closely. This is much better, the king said as his gaze rested on Adana's radiant face. And just like Uchi, the king was captivated by Adana's beauty and smile. I am King Ozomena, but you can call me King Ozo. He smiled as he spoke to Adana. She blushed at the king's statement. I am Adana and I am a trader. Interesting. King Ozo praised Adana. They chatted for a while and Adana almost forgot what brought her to the palace. She excused herself, telling the king she came to search for the royal drummer, Uchi. King Ozo praised Uchi on how diligent and skilled he was. They bade goodbye and Adana decided to go back to open her store. She figured Uchi might already be in her family house for the wedding. She had made peace with herself, but she had not healed enough to see her stepsister getting married to her betrothed. After the wedding, Uchi paid a visit to Adana. How are you feeling? He asked. I am feeling okay. I do not have a choice. Besides, I was not completely alone. King also kept me company. Adana shared with Uchi all that he spoke about. Uchi was happy she had great company. Weeks turned to months. Adana's business continued flourishing and she began to look more beautiful and lost all the fat that couldn't let her walk properly or breathe well. She looked much more beautiful. King Ozo never fails to send gifts to her every weekend. He had taken an interest in Adana but was watching her closely and her background before he proposed. Uchi became unsettled with the interest of King Ozo towards Adana. Each time he tried to discuss themselves, he got interrupted by Adana's consistent talk about King Ozo and his kindness. He knew if he did not tell Adana about his feelings, he would lose her for good. Suitors had started trooping into Chief Emeka's compound, asking for Adana's hand in marriage. Adana became fit and was gorgeously built. All the portion control and long walks had paid off. She was no longer the fat woman of Umudike. Her self-confidence had increased and she now knew her worth. Anytime Adana stepped out, everyone looked and admired her. She became much more beautiful and confident. Adana was now in love with herself. Uchi, her new close friend, stood behind her through it all, caring and loving her till she fell in love with herself. Everywhere Adana went, heads turned to behold her beauty and elegance. She was the most talked about maiden of Umudike. Ngozi had become a thorn on Afam's flesh. She would always request expensive wrappers and clothes every week. If Afam refused to provide, she would not cook for him or clean the house. One day, while Afam said to one of his stores, one of his boys, Chidi, told him his wife Ngozi had come to take some money, which was part of the money to pay for the goods they had purchased. She lied to them that Afam told her she could take the money. Afam was fuming with anger as that was the money he had planned to invest in his business. As soon as he got home, he saw the new clothes and jewelry and questioned Ngozi. I am Wunye Odogu, a rich man's wife. I cannot be caught wearing old clothes to women's meeting, so I went to buy new ones. I have to buy new clothes. The women's meeting is fast approaching, Ngozi told Afam. Irritated by the question, she hissed at him after saying that and packed all she had bought into the hut. Afam was frustrated and tired. He could not believe he married a woman who was causing him so much pain in his business and family. He began to think of Adana. Where could she be now? Adana was good and loving to him. He had not met anyone who treated him the way she did. Had he made a mistake marrying Ngozi because of her looks? Afam was thinking about his predicament when he saw Uchi walking into his compound. Uchi had a broad smile on his face. Afam could not let Uchi know about how his marriage was going. He quickly rearranged himself to welcome Uchi. Afam and Uchi caught up on old times. Uchi was happy to see Afam, his bosom friend. They bade goodbye afterwards. It had been a year and Ngozi had not conceived a child yet. Afam was the only son in his family, and she knew soon tongues would start wagging about her being unable to conceive a child. She feared Afam might be pushed to take a second wife, and she needed to have bragging rights. 2 days later, Afam's mother came to visit them. "Mama, you did not say you were coming to visit. You should let me know before you come to my home," Ngozi told Afam's mother, blocking her entrance into the hut. "Biko, where is my son, Afam? How is the family?" Afam's mother asked, ignoring Ngozi's tantrums. But Ngozi threw her words back at her. She did not like Afam's family visiting, as she believed they were the reason why Afam did not let her buy the things she wanted. Afam always sent money home to his family monthly, even though his wife, Ngozi, was not in support. "Afam is not home. It is best you come back, Mama," Ngozi told Afam's mother, frowning at her. Afam's mother went back to her house after waiting for Afam under the hot scorching sun because Ngozi would not let her in. Afam did the cooking the days Ngozi got angry. Sometimes weeks passed and Afam would do all the cooking and washing in the house if he failed to do her bidding. Things got worse as months passed. Afam's mother came to spend some time with Afam. She saw how Ngozi maltreated him. One bright morning, with the sun in the sky and the birds chirping, the morning breeze greeted the villagers as they went about their activities. Afam's mother called him that morning. "Afam, please come," his mother called. Afam sat with his mother in his mansion. "When will you start having children? I see the way your wife goes about things in this house," Afam's mother asked him, really concerned. "Mama, in God's time. We are trying to make this work," Afam told his mother, trying to cover up for Ngozi's bad behavior. "I see how she treats you. You might need to take a second wife that will care for you. How did you meet such a woman who is not homely?" Afam's mother asked, very worried of how Ngozi had changed. "She spends lavishly, does not cook, clean, or do anything around the house," Afam's mother complained. "I was already thinking about sending her back to her family, or maybe take a second wife. Ngozi had brought nothing but pain to me," Afam said, as he bowed his head in shame. He realized he had made a big mistake in marrying Ngozi. Ngozi overheard all what Afam and his mother discussed. She was hiding behind the door. She was shocked at the developments. She thought Afam will never leave her. What will the villagers say? She will be laughed at throughout the village, and who will remarry her with the stigma? She knew she needed to act fast. Ngozi had been thinking about how to get a child, but she was unable to conceive despite the herbs she had been drinking. She decided to confide in her friend Nkechi about her struggles with getting pregnant. The next morning, she went to Nkechi's house. "I need a male child," Ngozi said to Nkechi. "My friend, it is only a matter of time before Afam's family will begin to pressure him. Remember, he's the only son. You need to act fast," Nkechi told her, applying more pressure. "I agree with you. I don't know what is wrong with me. I am unsure of what to do. I have taken all the herbs, but still I have been unable to conceive. Me and Afam, we do not see eye to eye anymore because he would prefer me to be cooking and cleaning while his family visits and eats all the whole food. Ngozi complained bitterly about Afam's mother. Ngozi had become greedy that the monthly allowance Afam gave her was no longer sufficient. She wanted the best clothes and jewelries. She wanted to buy everything that came out, only the latest. Ngozi had changed and became so greedy. Nkechi gave her advice which she followed in getting her 3 children for her husband. Nkechi whispered things to Ngozi's ears. Abomination! Ngozi screamed at Nkechi, using her hands to cover her mouth. She could not believe what Nkechi had just told her. Nkechi assured her that it was the best way and no one would ever know. Ngozi was beyond shocked as she headed back to her home. She thought of trying to rekindle her affection with Afam, but that route will be long. That night, while Afam slept soundly, Ngozi kept tossing on the bed, and she finally decided to go ahead with Nkechi's advice. The longer she waits, the risky it becomes. She could not imagine another woman coming to share Afam's wealth and love with her. Meanwhile, Adana and King Ozo's friendship blossomed more. One beautiful morning, with the birds chirping and the sun in the sky, Uchi decided to let Adana know his feelings before it was too late. He dressed up in the beautiful Isiagu attire. He planned to play for the king that morning and then head over to Adana's family house. But as soon as he got to the palace, he was shocked at what he saw. He saw the king dressed fully to step out, holding gifts with his guards and his kinsmen. Just before he could ask the king what the occasion was, King Ozo told Uchi about his plan to go to Adana's family house to ask Adana's hand in marriage. Uchi, thank the Lord that you are here. I would like you to accompany me to Adana's house. I would like you to play for them as I make my interests known in marrying Adana, King Ozo said, smiling happily. Uchi's mouth dropped open. Is his love interest Adana getting betrothed to the king? How did he let her slip away from his hands again? Today, we will talk about gifts and diligence. Proverbs 22 verse 29 says, Seest thou a man diligent in his business, he shall stand before kings, he shall not stand before mean men. Uche's diligence with his gifts should be studied. Being diligent, consistent and disciplined is a sure way to good success. What do you think Ngozi is planning to do next? What do you think Nkechi told Ngozi to do? Do you think Uche will stop the king in proposing to his love interest? Was Uche right in waiting this long before approaching Adana? Watch out for part 3 of this intriguing story. In the meantime, please do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share to your loved ones. Thank you for the 1K subscribers. It warms my heart that you love my stories and enjoy it. Thank you so much. Till we meet again. Bye.